1,000,000 quadrillion billion years ago, in the far back days of 2009, the Scout update was released, and with it came a couple maps, an overpowered weapon, a bad weapon, and, most importantly of all, the Frag-a-Nature. One of the most underrated weapons for Scout, and I'm gonna give it the proper video it deserves. This is the To understand why this weapon is so awesome, we gotta go through the stats. First off, the damage penalty. A 10% damage penalty may sound bad, however, in return to this damage penalty, there's 20% more bullets in each of your shots, meaning that you won't be dealing as much damage from far away. However, when you get up close and personal, it also has a 66% clip size reduction, meaning you only have 2 shots in the clip instead of 6. This severely reduces your damage output as you don't have 6 shots to fire, meaning that you gotta make sure to hit those fat meat shots and have every shot count, because missing can be the difference between life and death. On the bright side, there's a 50% faster firing speed, which really helps out with the clip reduction, giving you the edge to fire the second shot before the enemy can. And if you're flanking, it allows you to fire the second shot before the enemy can even react. Overall, these stats alone perfectly balance each other out, but there's one more stat left to talk about. Knockback on target and the shooter. This may not sound like a lot, but the knockback is insane. But wait, isn't this a downside? When you get a meat shot on somebody, they go flying, and you can't get a good second shot on them. While people will see this as a downside, I see it as an upside, because when you're in a tight area with not that much room, you can absolutely devastate somebody, knocking them back with a fat meat shot, and then immediately shooting them again for another fat meat shot. Not to mention, the enemy is going to be disoriented and pretty surprised by the sudden knockback. Now, don't tell anybody this, but there's this little thing called environmental kills. Legend has it that the Frag-a-Nature is widely known for its ability in getting environmental kills with saws on Sawmill and cliffs on Upward because of its knockback. It's funny, it's cool, but also pretty difficult and really impractical, so do this at your own risk. Anyways, let's talk about this part of the stat, the knockback on shooter stat, and why it's one of the best and most fun mechanics in TF2. If you shoot while in midair, you go in the opposite direction, and this is called force jumping. To maximize force jumping efficiency, make sure you run, aim at exactly a 45-degree angle, jump, and then fire. Congratulations, you just did a force jump. While this concept may sound simple and easy, there's actually a lot more to it than it may sound. First off, we have to understand how force jumping works. Force jumping converts your momentum through speed to height, and height to speed. To dumb that down a little, the faster you go while force jumping, the higher you get. And the more high up you are when you FaN skip, the faster you'll go forward. FaN skipping, patent pending, is a technique where if you jump down from a high place and do a 180 flick at a 45-degree angle downward, all of your vertical momentum is converted into horizontal momentum. If done correctly, it should look like this. So why should I do these things in the first place, you ask? Why should I force jump, and why should I FaN skip? Well, it allows you to catch up to those schmucks that you meat shot and flew away, jumping over gaps in a funky way to outplay your enemy, flanking in a fancy and innovative way, and, most importantly, frag. Hey Tony! Yeah? Show him the frag video I made. Okay. somehow couldn't tell, I love force jumping. So what's the strategy? What's the matchups? Why should I use this weapon? What's its weaknesses and what's its strengths? Well, first off, the strategy. This weapon does not support drawn-out battles. You'll learn this fairly quickly, as having 2 shots and a slower reload speed really encourages a hit-and-run playstyle. Getting in there, get a good pick, and then leave. If you're fighting 2 people at the same time, it's safe to skedaddle out of there because you're most likely not going to take them both on. Some good matchups are going to be your usual picks as scouts, such as medics, snipers, spies, pyros, and demomen. But you really lose the ability to fight scouts with a scattergun, as they have more shots than you, so make sure to hit your shots and make them really count. Sometimes the knockback completely stuns them, meaning you can get an easy next shot. Typically, heavies are pretty easy picks, but with the Force of Nature, it's a different story. Unless you get 2 perfectly good meat shots and then finish him off, it's better to just run away, especially if he has a medic. Soldiers are a 50-50 situation. It really all depends on whether the soldier decides to use his brain. They can use splash damage, but if you just keep jumping and force jumping over him, you should get the job done. Engineers are... How do I use it effectively, though? Well, this weapon loves flanking. Seriously, if you like flanking, you'll love this weapon. When I see people using the Force of Nature, they act as if it's just a scattergun, which it isn't. This weapon is really good at flanking because of force jumping, and getting the jump on an enemy is always going to be a good upper hand. But what if you don't flank? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you don't want to flank, or just can't, might I recommend a more combo-oriented playstyle? The knockback can be a pretty good stun for a second shot, but what if you don't want to waste that second shot, or the enemy is too far away because of the knockback? This is a very common situation, and I think this is where the Force of Nature shines the most. Might I introduce the Flying Guillotine? It's a projectile that deals a whopping 50 damage, deals bleed damage, and recharges super quick. This is probably your best combo when it comes to the Force of Nature, as no other secondary does fat burst damage like the Flying Guillotine. Not to mention, by the time you've already killed somebody with it, it's already recharged. And to top it all off, it isn't affected by damage fall off, meaning no matter how far away your knockbacked enemy is, you can always rely on that juicy 50 damage. The Atomizer, which I've already made a video about and you should totally check it out, is actually pretty good with the Force of Nature and gives you 4 jumps that you can do in total. This may sound unnecessary and overkill, but you would be surprised by how useful this actually is. It allows you to find wacky spots, lets you flank even better than before, and gives you extra height for fan skipping. The Basher is, well, it's the Basher. But if you gain some height through Basher jumping, you can actually get some mad speed through fan skipping. The Criticola gives you guaranteed mini-crits for 8 seconds, at the downside of not having a secondary weapon, and for those 8 seconds, you're also marked for death. This makes the Force of Nature from a glass cannon all the way to a glass nuclear missile. Seriously, meat shots with a mini-crit boosted Force of Nature does a whopping 152 damage, which means you can one-shot every light class and the medic. This may sound nice and all, but trust me, you can also get one shot by most things as well. So you really gotta watch out and keep an eye out for those medics. Welp, that's all I have to say about the Force of Nature. I hope you guys enjoyed this, as I did put a lot of time into this video. And I hope I especially changed your view on the Force of Nature, as most people just write it off as a bad weapon, even though it has so much potential that people refuse to use. Anyways, I'm Vsauce, and that's a wrap. Back to you, IGN. The Force of Nature really makes you feel like a force in nature.
I don't need no boost.
No.
I don't need no scattergun.
No thanks.
I don't want no bonk.
Not today.
I prefer to hit and run.
Yeah.
I'm a force in nature.
What?
I'm a force in nature.
Tell him again.
I'm a force in nature.
Tell him again.
And I'll catch you later.